And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
The Convoy is a two-player game set in the Hiroshima Hex universe from Portal, who, I guess at this point, has their own great apocalypse type universe. And this is a two-player card game. One person is controlling the evil robotic Molech as they march to New York to destroy it. The other is the heroic outpost who will snipe and use commandos and do what they can to stop the outpost. It's a card game for two players. Let's take a look. There are 5 city cards that are laid out in the middle of the table before players start the game. And you can see there's 2 sides to each card. We have the outpost side and then we have the Moloch side. And the Moloch is basically they're destroying these cities on their way to New York, which they're also trying to destroy. And what players are going to do is they're going to have battles here in Ziggy 1 first, then move to Iron Gate, then to Cleveland Harbor, then the Jersey Crust, and so on and so forth. In each of these cities, there are several smaller battles that can occur. So let's flip this over to the Moloch side so that we can see these a little better. Each player is going to have a handful of cards at the beginning of their turn. They're going to start with 4, and then they'll be drawing 2 each turn. And the first thing that happens after players draw a card is the Moloch player is going to determine which of these areas in the active cities. So let's say that we're in city 3 here, Cleveland Harbor, and he decides which one of these regions in that city, which district in that city we're going to be fighting over. So he decides that we're going to fight over this one. Then the Moloch card is going to be able to play as many cards on his side of the city as he wants to. He does have a certain amount of slots in that city. There's 3 here. You can see in Jersey Crust there's 2, and there's 4. The Moloch player has fewer places to put people, however his stuff is usually stronger. So for example, he could play this Defender. Let's take a look at this. A lot of these cards are going to look like this. You can see the Defender here has a strength of 2. It shows here that it's a robot, and then it has a special ability. In this instance, that special ability only comes into play if the robots win that side of the city. And so he could add as many as he wants to different cities. Here, for example, he could add the Brain. And this shows that when he comes into the city, he can do something. So there's different special abilities, but the total strength of the robots there is 3. Now, you do not have to put the cards in the city that you're fighting. In this instance, if we were in City 3, Cities 1 and 2 would be scorched. They would be gone. But you can always put ones in the city that's coming up. If you do, you can put a +1 token on that as long as there's no one else on the other side. Basically, you've got there first and you can do your defenses. Both sides can do this. After the bad guy, I'm just going to call him that, plays the cards on his side, then the good guy has an opportunity. The outpost has a chance to put out people on their side. They will have different soldiers, and you can see the soldiers here that they can put in cities that will do different things. For example, here the Kid, basically when you put him in a city, he copies someone else's ability in that city, and he's worth 1. But they also have buildings. The difference between buildings and humans is that buildings can't move around like the other people can, but this one here gives all your soldiers a +1, and it's also worth 1 itself. And so you'll be placing these in. After the outpost has placed their people in cities, then we go back to the bad guys again, and this time they can place modules and activate modules. Now, a module can't fight by itself, but you can put it onto a robot. So for example, this one here reduces the number that the good guys can have by 1, and I can put that on this Defender. And so now he has a module attached with him. If that robot ever moves to another city, the module will go with him. After the modules are done, the good guy has a chance to use, or actually he could have done this on his turn, he has the ability to use one of the special abilities of the city. Each ability has a special ability, so for example here, he could discard a card from the city to add 1 more to the number of troops that he's allowed to have here. He can only do each of these special abilities once per game, but since you're not in the city very long, you're not going to, you might as well use them. So, once again, the different actions that the players are going to have on their turn is they can put out a soldier into a city, either in a city that their battle is currently being fought, or one that's coming in the future. They can use special abilities. They can also play instant cards on their turns. And it's really nice here that they've made it very convenient. There's no back and forth between instants. You simply play them on your turn. So this here basically lets me put a module back into my hand. All right. Now, I guess I should mention at this point in time that I think the icons make sense, but you're going to be constantly finding yourself looking in the rule book to see what each of these guys does the first time you play it, because almost everybody has a special ability. After all cards are played, we then compare the results in the current city, which, what do we say it was this district here in Cleveland Harbor. So we can compare, and we look here, over here, we have a total strength of 1, and here we have a strength of 2 on the robot side, so the robots win. Now, regardless who wins, the district is destroyed. It's a pretty rough thing, but if you win, you will also get a special victory bonus. That's what that red star means. This means if the robots win, they get to destroy another city, which is a pretty big deal because that's less cities they have to fight in, and the faster they get to New York. While if the good guys win, you can see there they would make the robots discard a card from their deck. And if the robots win, they also get a special ability that's on the city. There you see a Statue of Liberty. That basically means they can move one of their units to New York City. Now, if the good guys had won, they could also have sent someone to New York City. And sometimes these effects will affect both people, like this bomb. One of the units on both sides are going to die. When every district here is filled up, then this is scorched, and then the next city becomes the active city. And we keep going till we get to New York City. In New York City, we continue to fight, but after the final fight, whichever one of these 4 it is, and New York City is scorched, there needs to be 0 robots in New York City and 0 cards left in your deck. When you draw cards from your deck, you never replace them. When they're discarded, they're out of the game. So the bad guy is on a timer here. Moloch is on a timer because he needs to destroy as quickly as possible and get as many units into New York City so that in the battles there, if they're destroyed, he can still put down more robots, while the good guys are trying to snipe them off and kill as many robots and deplete the bad guys' deck and slog them down in these other cities. So either the good guys are going to win by destroying all the robots in New York City and all the cards in the Moloch's deck, or otherwise the Moloch player, is the winner. Convoy is a 2-player game that just fascinated me. I'm still thinking about it, still really enjoyed this game. The asymmetrical sides was very fun, very different. There's a few cards that each side has that were similar, but the whole way you play is different. As the outpost, you are sitting there saying, I got to take these guys out as fast as I can, but I can't. You know, some battles you're just not going to win because the Moloch army is just like walking as huge robots, stomping everything in their path. And so you have to give up some battles, but at the same time, if you give up too many battles, they're just going to massacre you. On the other side, the Moloch, you can't be too confident. You can't just waste cards because you have to conserve your cards. And you can't spend too many robots. Yeah, you can massacre the outpost pretty much at any battle you want to, but you're going to probably have to let them win a few battles so that you can conserve your robots for the end to New York. Some really neat ideas. The only negative I would have about this game is the constant having to look up everything, although by my second and third game, the second game I barely look stuff up, the third game I don't have to look it up at all because I remember what it all does. But for that first game, you will be constantly looking up what the different units do. But it does make sense. It is thematic and it works well. It reminds me a lot of a game from Stronghold called Revolver. And Revolver is a game that kind of did the same thing, but Revolver, I felt like what you did was kind of dictated by the game. Each game played out kind of, the cards you got were what you got. Here you have much more control, much more where am I going to put things. It didn't feel so much as a back and forth, but a very close battle, deciding in strategic decisions. This is a neat little game, Convoy, or I'm sorry, The Convoy.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.